Namaste, yogis. This is Adrienne
And Natalie.
and our special guest, Lara. How are you today?
I'm doing great. So happy to join y'all.
Well, welcome. We are very excited. Now, you are joining us from the way far Northeast. You are up in the
Mm.
Massachusetts or no, Maine area.
No, Massachusetts. Yeah,
Massachusetts.
Western Mass.
I always get those two
Western
states
Mass.
confused.
Do you really?
I know.
I do.
Once you get up above New York, it's kind of like, what?
It's all the same. It's just
Exactly.
north.
Yeah.
It's all beautiful up there. It's all beautiful up there.
How cold is it already? We're in South Texas, so I'm a little envious. You're having a real fall.
Yeah, it's true fall. We were just away for 2 weeks and we came back and leaves not only have changed, but some of them have dropped. But a lot of them are
Mm,
still beautiful orange, yellow, but it's got like that crisp feeling. Like I have my sweatshirt on. We're going to do a sauna later on this afternoon. That always feels great
nice.
to do. Yeah. So it's nice. But then we're heading out to California right when it starts to drop too low for my comfort.
Nice.
Good. That's perfect.
It's
I
almost
love
like,
that.
what is that? You're like a snowbird, but not north to south. It's east to west.
Exactly. East to west. It's really fun. It's the worst part is having to um, fly with my cat, which I always get nervous about. I've done it. He's done, 4 flights now, um, east to west, west to east, but it always makes me nervous
Do
that
you
something's
have
going
to
to happen.
sedate? Do you have to sedate a
Oh
cat?
yeah, no, I sedate him. I mean, he
Wow.
he sleeps most of the time, but occasionally, he's pooped in his bag, things like
Yeah, yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
just
Right.
like I've practiced all my deep breathing when that happens.
Yeah. I
But it's
mean,
it's good. He's the coolest cat. I get nervous. It's
Yeah,
the one
traveling
thing.
with a cat is different. I've traveled with a dog many times, but I don't know, it's easy. Well, and my dog's a Chihuahua, and
Yeah.
yeah,
it's
TT,
easy.
yeah. He's about the same size as my cat, probably.
exactly.
She might be smaller.
I know.
Maybe. Yeah. Mo is 12 pounds and he's a big boy. Yeah, but
Okay.
I sedate him. It's just a
Mm.
long day because
It's a lot.
there's no direct flight from here, so we have to change, and
Oh yeah.
that's a little bit of and he's very heavy when he's sedated. So it's like I'm carrying
Yeah.
a 20-pound bowling bag.
Wait,
Uh,
how do you take them? Do you have to take them out of the TSA bag, like in the
I
bag?
do
Oh
just
oh
when I go
gosh.
wow.
through that. Yeah, I know. But by then he's pretty mellow and he just kind of looks around. And as
Okay.
the TSA people said, he's going to be very excited to get back in. So he's always f fine with getting back in. So
Okay.
it's not as big of a deal as I thought. Again, if I've done it 4 times now, so he's good.
Oh my
We're good.
gosh. Well, like you said, you're breathing like our animals, just like our humans, pick up our energy.
Yeah,
So
they
if
do.
you're
Yeah,
feeling
they really do.
stressed,
Absolutely.
then
Yeah.
the
100%.
cat or the dog is going to be stressed or is going to have that energy as well. So, yep, energy. Yeah, the energy you put out, is the energy you get back sometimes, right?
Truly, truly.
Let's tell our listeners a little bit about you.
Well, I just had a birthday yesterday, or 2 days
Ah,
ago. I
Happy
happy
just turned
birthday.
50. Thank
birthday.
you. I just turned 56. And I always like to say that because I feel like being older gives you a little bit more, I think, credibility and experience, and also just vision. So moving back from there, when I became a physical therapist at 25, and at the same time I took my first yoga class, and so those happened together. So 30 years ago,
Wow.
and I always knew I wanted to be in health. I was always very into fitness, into movement. I grew up with three brothers. I was always very, very sporty with them. And so originally thought I wanted to be a doctor like my dad, but then I didn't want to have that kind of lifestyle. So
Mhm.
physical therapy was actually a perfect fit because it was autonomous in the way that being a physician is, but a much better lifestyle. And also what I discovered is much more contact and deeper relationships with the clients or patients. And similarly, teaching yoga, it's like getting to know the people that come regularly, and not just that short kind of visit that a doctor patient would have. So I started teaching yoga, and then I went back and got my postgraduate specialization in neurodevelopmental training, which is really just maximizing neuroplasticity in all situations. Specifically in the clinical way, I was working with people who had sustained some kind of trauma to the brain that rendered them having some kind of motor deficit. So whether it was a brain injury from traumatic brain injury or a stroke patient, they would come and have some kind of motor deficit. And my postgraduate work was really about not teaching compensatory strategies, but actually trying to rewire the connections from the brain to the body to allow them to get that motor function back. And that really set the kind of groundwork for the platform of how I started to incorporate that in yoga. Because I taught regular vinyasa for about 4 or 5 years simultaneously to doing my PT. So it was like PT by day, yoga person by night. I really didn't think about the integration of those two until I started to just notice that, people come into yoga and they're kind of carrying their energy, their posture from their
Mm.
day, from their life. And that's many years, habits that come in, whether it's the way they hold themselves or the way they breathe or the way they lift their arms by thrusting their ribs forward, these little movement patterns that we all have in our modern day life, um, done to some degree or another that are not as efficient or as effective. And so I thought, well, how can I do what I'm doing with my PT clients and retrain better movement habits for able-bodied people? And so I started doing that, and that was really the beginning of what is now LYT Yoga. And at first, it was very strange, I think, because looking back 25 years ago, a lot of people were not including
Mhm.
non-yoga stuff, functional things, getting on the ground a lot. And so I think to people that weren't used to yoga, they might have looked at it and been like, this is not really yoga. But people that took it loved it and they could feel the difference because what it really is doing is priming the body and the brain connection so that when you get into bigger movement patterns, those sequences and whatnot, you can actually start to change and improve the way you're moving, the way that you're summoning different muscles to fire more effectively. So it really became quite popular. I opened up a studio. I started teacher training. It kept like, I just looked, essentially, I became I call it an accidental entrepreneur. Um, I
I
just kept
love
looking.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, I used to say reluctant entrepreneur, which is not it's not as friendly. Because I really, I think when we aren't trained in business, we think we don't have a business mind. But the truth is, life is business. Kids are business. Like there's a degree of management in all these different realms of our lives. So it's just a willingness to be curious and ask questions and hire people that can do the things you don't want to do. So I just always found those gaps in what was needed and tried to fill them because ultimately what really want to do is educate people about their body. Most people go their entire lives and know very little about their body. This is the home that it's carrying us. It's our longest relationship we'll have. And we didn't learn it in school. We weren't taught it if it wasn't apparently a very important thing. And to me, it's the most important thing is getting to know yourself and understanding how you can, hold energy and maximize energy. And because that's how you relate to people, how you behave in life, as well as how you move on the map. So that's been my big goal, and I've been doing that now for 30 years, and it's just I wake up every day and I'm still very passionate about it. So I now have an online teacher training, both the 200 and 300 hour. I have online platform, and then I travel for workshops, retreats, etc.
That is so
Wow.
cool. So, like, it's so neat to hear this because, well, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a physical therapist. And I went to college and I got scared because of the math and the science elements that
Oh
with
yeah.
my brain, I didn't feel like I was, smart enough or, able bodied enough to be able to get through that mentally. And so I changed to philosophy. But you and I grew up, you're a couple years older than me, but I just turned 50 this year. And it's very interesting to see like that, you know, even though I did philosophy and then I sold beer for a living and now I teach yoga and personal training and all that stuff, what I find so cool
That's
is
the
like,
cutest route.
it is. It's
Yeah.
just, around.
It's cool. It's so cool.
So
It really
different.
is.
It's such a different route. But like looking at what you've been able to do with your career and where you see exactly the same holes that we see, where it's like, why is it that like we give people a driving test and driving lessons to get behind the wheel of a car, but then the vehicle that we're in, we're never given any idea of how to move, how to breathe, how to feel better, and everything that we have is under our control. But then we push it off to other people or other situations. We deflect, and we are not truly in our bodies. And I feel like that where you're coming from and your expertise is like, it's very much in line with everything that I believe in. Like, so I have a question for you. When you started yoga and PT at the same time, what did you notice about PT that was missing with yoga? And then what did you see with yoga missing from PT?
Mm. Yeah, because there was, like I always say, I bridged the gap between two of them because there was, so in PT, um, the biggest gap right now, and it was not so much when I came out, but it's only increased, and this has a lot to do with the way insurance will reimburse, is that it compartmentalizes the body. You have a problem in an area, and we're addressing that area. And it doesn't look at it's not holistic. It's not, you're not, I was trained very holistic. Thank goodness my graduate school was amazing in that. But the way that we're set up as clinicians doesn't make it very easy to be. You kind of have to not be deceptive, but I'm like somebody comes in for their shoulder. I'm going to look at everything. Their shoulder
Yeah.
probably has something to do with their ribs or their pelvis or
Right.
their neck position. So I'll look at the whole thing, but I have to, write it down as a shoulder things. So where PT is really lacking is many PTs are stuck in this silo of like, okay, I'm just going to give you some shoulder exercises. And while it might help, it's not looking at the whole picture. And
Right.
I feel like yoga does a really good job of attempting to look at the whole picture. It's grounded in this principle of being integrated, of being holistic, and you have more time as well than you do in PT if somebody is taking from you regularly to really follow them along this trajectory, because time is necessary when you're remapping and rewiring better movement habits and imbalances. So imbalances are usually what lead to pain or an injury. And so those imbalances take a while to mitigate and to improve. And so PT, for one, doesn't really give you that time. Well, you're not given that time
No.
because, again, of insurance. And so our job as PTs is really to educate as much as possible. But we need more time to educate about the whole system, how it all impacts that. Um, Yoga, on the other hand, looks at the whole system, but like you said, I often will say it is like being a car mechanic, but you've only been taught to change the oil.
Yeah.
So a
Mm.
lot of yoga teachers have been taught to change the oil. But if something else is going on under the hood, you're really screwed,
Yeah.
right? You're like, I don't know. I wasn't taught that. So I really became a huge advocate for yoga teachers because so many people love yoga so much they want to teach it. They go to these trainings which have no like consistency or
None.
accountability because we have one monopolizing accrediting agency that doesn't even really have
Non-profit.
oversight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Non-profit.
exactly. Oh,
Yeah,
don't even get me
exactly.
started. Like
Yeah.
it's been my biggest, I always say what we're talking about. I have so many issues with it, and yet it's also been my golden ticket because all those people have then come to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it to have been that way because they've spent money on this and then they run into this like, I don't know what to do. I feel like a charlatan.
Right.
I'm teaching a movement system about the body and I know nothing
Nothing about
about
it.
the body.
Yes.
I
Hmm.
maybe got 10 hours of anatomy that wasn't even
Maybe,
interesting or applicable, maybe.
Yeah.
maybe.
And so it's really it's just it's wrought with so many issues because again, teachers have not been trained about the body and then they're teaching the body and it's not just so where I saw yoga is missing is like the empowerment of the teacher's knowledge and being able to go, yoga purports to be inclusive, and yet it's not very inclusive if you're not able to kind of speak to all the different people and all the different histories and all the different body types and mobility abilities in the room. If you're just calling out poses and just kind of hoping for the best.
Right.
So
That sounds like
those
a
are
lot
the,
of classes.
It
yeah.
does.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Well, and
And,
it's
I'm,
sad because
uh,
there's not the regulation of like, hey, this is what you need to learn about the body in order to sequence for a yoga class, right? It's like
exactly.
it's really mind blowing to me that yoga has had such a huge past, thousands and thousands of years of history, but yet we can't turn around and find ways to teach and have value and respect just like you would if you're a personal trainer or if you're a Pilates teacher. It's like yoga's like this, kind of woo-woo-y, off on its own, not really regulated, all the trainings are different. It's sad to me because we put just as much time, effort, and energy, probably more, especially when you think about
Hmm.
how many hours we train, but yet where the consistency and the knowledge base is so widespread.
Well, there's just so
Yeah. And
many
then,
different styles and different
yes.
schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
it's enormous.
Well,
It's enormous. And then when you get, like when I started being a critical thinker and questioning, um, people that were not as attached to yoga being in this box, this
Hmm.
like kind of like, oh, you don't mess with the box, you don't change it. And they didn't realize like, well, yoga has always been evolving, and
Hmm.
people, we need to evolve for our modern day bodies, and it's only amplifying the message, not diminishing it, by recognizing that we want to be effective teachers of this and carrying this lineage, but also evolving it. And that's not anything that is good has evolved.
right. Right.
It's the stagnancy and the that the people that are like, this is not, the very people that say this is not yoga are probably not really even sure what yoga is in the first place.
I can't
So
stand it when people put
it
us in a box or say like, "Oh,
mhm.
never can you do this." As soon as someone says that, I'm like, "Fuck you, I'm out.
It's
I'm
I
out."
true.
know, I
She
know. And
is.
there's like, oh my gosh. And they'll be like, oh, you can't have music. You can't have this type of music. You can't use weights. I'm
Right.
like, I
Right.
don't, I don't care. I
No.
don't care. If it makes people feel better and they're nicer
Yeah.
humans,
Exactly.
and that's all that really matters.
Honestly,
And
I think
that's
that's such a great bar. Like, does it make people nicer humans? Is
Yeah.
it working?
yes.
Does it make people nicer humans? It's like, are they better in
Yeah,
mind and body both? Okay,
exactly.
then we're
That's
gonna
it.
do it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Well, and it's so interesting to me because you were talking about like how with your physical therapy you kind of went into kind of the neurological side of things and like how you can rewire your brain and the neuroplasticity of like especially thinking about women when they have diastasis recti and they're like, oh, they said that it's not fixable or I have to have a surgery to fix it. And it's like, well, but there are ways to fix it if you are working with someone who can teach that to you or can help you rewire your brain to jump over that scar tissue to remeld or restructure your body.
Yeah. And that's, I think, again, when people don't understand their bodies, they've never been taught, everything comes from fear because you don't
Yes.
know. And so a doctor tells you you need to do this and you think that's the solution. And sometimes it is. My dad was an orthopedic surgeon, but he would be the first to say, I want to avoid surgery at all
Hmm.
cost until it's absolutely necessary.
Hmm.
And it's this idea that, yeah, our body is extremely resilient. It's
Yes.
working for us, but we have to give better input to the brain to help our nervous system, to help the muscles firing, to help that reconnection. And again, that takes time. And that's another thing that some people, they want the quick fix.
Hmm.
And everything that's worthwhile is going to have time involved. You're just going to have
Yeah.
to dedicate it. And isn't that amazing that
Yeah.
we have time to do this? So putting these kind of markers on, like, if I don't have this by then,
Hmm.
it's like, it's the practice again. It keeps on coming back. Like, it is the practice, and it's a lifelong practice, and we don't ever get there. We're just continuing to try and improve and better ourselves.
That that touches on our previous release. I think it's a previous release
Yeah.
where we
Hmm.
we talked about how a lot of people come in and they're like, how long is it going to take for me to, get abs or lose 10 pounds? Or for I had a client whose hips were locked up. He was nearly 70 and his hips didn't really move anymore. He wanted to know, would it take a month or 2 months for his hips to work again? And I was like, and but I like the way you put it. Your relationship with your body is your longest standing relationship, and caring and nurturing and keeping it healthy. That is also a lifelong journey. It's not going to take a month. It's not going to take 6 weeks. This
No.
is something you're doing.
No, but it takes time. And it's also like, so my question too is like, when you look back on, you said it best, and Natalie and I know because we both have had doctors or, body people, whether it's physical therapists, most of the time it's like physicians or surgeons that are our clients. And
Mhm.
when we look at their body and how they move or how they're stuck in certain postural positions because of the work that they do or how to free up their body a little bit. And then you're like, but you're a doctor. How come you don't know this? We
Mhm.
found out that doctors don't get nutritional classes. They don't have to take a course in nutrition. It's like, what? How is that
Yeah.
possible? How is it that our doctor doesn't know about nutrition? And then you think about how the body's connected. And I'm curious to know if you are like in a study of myofascial lines in the body and myofascial tissue. Do you believe in that stuff? Do you study it? Is that part of like your belief system?
Absolutely. I'm
Yes.
trained in myofascia, so I
Yes.
have all the different yeah, because I mean, and I think that I am both science and spirit. That's where I feel like science meets spirit with our program because there are some things that you can't totally explain, but they totally make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think fascia is very scientific, and then there's parts of it that are kind of almost beyond any kind of data point, right?
Right.
So knowing that fascia has so much sensory information, and that sensory information, in a way, can hold emotions, can hold sensations. We don't have to label them whatever we want to label, but it can, and we don't have to know where it necessarily came from. Sometimes it's kind of interesting to start thinking about it, but it's more about like, well, how can we improve it so that it's working with us? It's this living system that is holding us together, literally.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, it's going to have some imbalances. It's going to have some history. It's going to have some scars. So whether they're physical, emotional, or both. And I think that all we have to look at all. It's like psychosocial, biomedical. I'm really about the whole body. I mean, I've worked with so many people who have had chronic pain. They've
Mm-hmm.
gone
Mm,
to tons of doctors. They're like, getting our MRIs, they're getting,
mm-hmm,
all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it's like they just need their nervous system to calm the fuck
mm-hmm,
down.
Yeah.
Like it's there.
mm-hmm,
And almost always it's like something happened at some point in their life and it wasn't processed, it wasn't addressed, and they carry it in their nervous system. And at some
mm-hmm,
point, their body's like, I can't carry this anymore.
mm-hmm,
So I'm just going to give you all the signals at once and go haywire. That it could be hypersensitization, it could be whatever, but it's like there's no medicine or surgery that will fix that. It's
mm-hmm,
simply like really learning to befriend your body, and in that all those signals that are really just dysfunctional at that point become more balanced, and you're working with your body instead of against it.
I think
I
that's a
think,
great point because we are all trying to, figure out, at least, movement people are trying to figure out how to work with our bodies, where the majority of people are trying to just avoid it. And it's like, hey, guess
Yeah,
what? I'm still here. I'm still here. Body's still here. It's not going anywhere.
I
yeah,
think it's a really relatable point too, that you're carrying a stress or a trauma or neglect, and it's coming out physically, like physical ailments, physical problems. I think all of us have lived that moment at some point where, whether it's pain or discomfort or tension, that that you just can't get rid of. And you've seen the doctor, you've had the MRIs, you've taken the pills, but none of those external things are helping. I think many of us have had that moment, that how yoga changed my life moment, where turning inward and taking care of yourself helped in a way that a traditional like prescription wasn't able to this time.
Absolutely. Well, even
Yes, I've been saying movement is like a love note to yourself,
mhm,
and and doing it just for the health and vitality of your body and your mind and your emotions versus some like external gain. I've got to lose 5 pounds. So when everybody says something like that to me, I try and reframe it, and say like, well, how about, how long is it going to take until I feel really friendly with my body, at home
Yeah.
with my body? Because
mm,
then it's not there's a lot less judging, and that's hard. Obviously, especially with women, we're living in a society that we're really conditioned on our physical, external appearance and judged by that, and then we're usually the worst critics for, the inward critic is the worst. So it's like, how do you like get rid of that little bitch in the attic of your head and
yeah.
say,
I
hey,
love
you know
that.
what?
That's fantastic.
Hmm.
I have to tell you, that's not that my one of my teacher trainees told me that, and I just
I
love
love
that. It
it.
was great.
No, it's
It was so
great.
great.
It's so
The bitch
true.
in
Um,
the attic.
Well, yeah, you think about it, that's exactly like
That's
your
exactly what it
yeah,
is.
the brain,
yeah,
your brain is like the worst case scenario handbook. It's
Oh,
constantly
it
trying
so
to
is.
protect you. It's like in survival mode. So it's like you can't blame your brain for being a bitch because your brain is literally trying to protect you from dying. But the brain is not the physicalness of your body where you can get that feedback of like, okay, this is not really like a life or death situation. I can calm down. I can treat this. I can take care of this instead of letting it spiral right up in your brain.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's why all of us are addicted to this practice, because
Mm,
when we're moving, I mean, our bodies are always present. Our mind is not often present. We're usually like in the past, ruminating, or in the future, worrying. But when we're in our bodies and we're moving our bodies, we're so present. We're really clearing that space of really raising the consciousness that yoga is all about. And then it's that the goal is, how do we carry that into more moments of our lives? And I think the longer and more consistent your practice is, it happens.
It
I
happens
always say
naturally.
I would just not be a nice person if I wasn't practicing. I'm just so much, I'm calm and I'm able to handle so much. I always credit the practice with that. And that is really, it's balancing everything, the emotions, the responsiveness versus reactivity. And then, of course, the physicality, which just feels good to feel robust and centered in your body. It transmits into all the different facets.
Well, I think what's really cool too is that you had the opportunity to experience, going through school with having, the yoga supporting it. So I'm sure, like, as far as being able to process and understand, it was a great tool and a supportive tool. Did you notice, or did anyone notice a change in you as you were going through your yoga journey in the beginning?
I would say, so when I was in grad school, I wasn't doing yoga. I didn't discover it until after grad school. I was running. I
Oh,
was a big runner. And so when I
mm.
first did yoga, I actually was in a running club and they offered it. And I was like, oh, okay. I almost didn't take it
Right? Like
because I
most
thought I
runners.
really, like, I'm like, I don't need to stretch. I don't really need to sit there and breathe. And then I did it, and it was this power yoga class. And I was like, holy shit, this is incredible. It gave me that same feeling of just endorphins that I got with running, that same kind of freedom and joy that I felt in my years of dancing. Um, and I would say that I've always had a tool. So I don't know if anybody noticed anything really with yoga per se, because that's been my most consistent thing is I've always had a tool for no, I wrote my college essay to get into college about the mind body connection before even studying yoga,
Wow.
because
really?
I ran a marathon my senior year with I'm a triplet, and one of my triplet brothers and I ran cross country. And after the season was over, he said, "Hey, there's a marathon in 3 weeks. You want to run it with me?" And I was like, "Sure." We'd never run more than 9 or 10 miles,
Shut
mind you.
up.
Okay. Now
How old were you?
I was 18.
Oh my
So,
That's
you know,
God.
such
I
an
had,
18-year-old's decision.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sure, John, let's do it.
Holy
Let's do
shit.
it.
And,
I
but I
love that.
ran it and
What a
I
beautiful
remember,
memory.
yeah. And I remember so distinctly at mile 21, just being
Mm.
like, shit, I gotta stop. This sucks. This sucks. I hate this. Every like negative, like I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And then I just was like, okay, just, you know what, make it to that tree. Okay, make it to that. And it was this whole negotiation. And then
Mm.
finally it's like 23.5 miles. And I'm like, oh my, I don't have much more. And I wrote my college essay about it, sort of like write about something. Um, the reason why is it's like the mind was giving out before the body.
Exactly.
I was 18, I could do this. Anybody probably could do it. It might be torturous, but like it's the mind that gives out
Yes.
before. So it's like, what are the thoughts that you're saying to yourself, and can you change them? Because it'll change the way you feel. It'll change your capability. And so it is all that, like where you focus, the neurons are going to fire more. So
Yeah.
if I'm focused, so I think from a young age, I always had that, like, I'm gonna focus on the good. I'm gonna focus on, I know what makes me feel better. Like, and similarly in high school, I'd sprained my ankle very badly,
Oh.
in a dance class, and I was in a cast. And after about a month, I was feeling really low. I'd never felt like sad or depressed or anything.
Mm.
So I'd say that was the closest. And I was like, damn, I just got to move. I knew I just have to move. I hopped on a little stationary bike, so boring, but I started moving and sweating. And it's
With your
like
cast on?
immediately,
Hmm.
with my cast on,
Yeah.
I felt the cloud just lift.
Mm.
And so I had this in me. I knew how much movement informed my disposition.
Yeah.
And so that's the other thing I wish that I could convey to people is like, just move. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It could be 10 minutes. And then notice how you feel. You will feel better. There's no doubt. It's
Absolutely.
part of, we are beings of energy. We are designed to move. And when we move, we feel alive. And that aliveness comes from the movement.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it saddens me that people don't give themselves that time,
Right.
whether it's, I practice 75 to 90 minutes still every day. Um, I know it's part of my job, but I would carve out that time. I would wake up early if I had to,
Yeah.
because I know it impacts everything else in my life. I'm a better mother. I'm a better wife. I'm a better friend. I'm just, and I'm obviously, I run a business a lot better because I feel calm and balanced and centered.
Yeah.
And movement is absolutely the key to that.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it's so interesting too that you were talking to yourself during the marathon. Like I remember I tried being a runner for years and realized that like that just was not a skill set that I possessed, but I did learn how to, what I don't know if it's actually true or not, but I always say in like my classes, when your brain is giving up, you still have 40% left in the tank. Like your brain is going to say, nope, because it's in protective mode. It doesn't want you to push past its limits that it puts on you. It's like the same thing they say, like in a European car versus a US car, that if you are down to like miles per gallon in the UK, it's going to be way more accurate. And it's going to say, like, you have 10 miles and that's all you get. But then in the US, it's like, well, it says 10, but technically you have 20. Isn't that crazy? Isn't
That's
that crazy?
crazy.
There's a Dateline episode about it, or 60 Minutes, one of those
Maybe,
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they know Americans are going to just push
I need,
that.
yeah,
Exactly.
I need,
Exactly.
I need those secret
Yeah.
10 miles.
Natalie definitely does. Natalie, the other day, I'm driving and I said, oh, I have to get gas. And she goes, oh my God, I do too. I have less than 1 mile. I'm like,
Oh my
that's a
gosh.
problem.
True story.
Yeah.
This is from like 3-4 days ago.
Literally.
She's like, oh, I've got to stop and get gas. I was like, oh my God, I was supposed to get gas yesterday.
It's like,
That stresses me out. If
yeah,
I'm
me
like at a
too.
quarter tank, I'm going to gas. Yeah, I
Yep.
know. It's
I'll
just
push it a
draining.
little bit,
Yeah.
but that's only because I watched that episode, so I
Yeah.
know that
You
it's
know
gonna
what?
work.
It's just been a long month.
It
Is
has.
all it
Yeah.
is.
It
That's
And I
has.
okay.
was,
We all have our moments. I know.
Exactly.
oh,
Well, and
I was
then
like, thank God you mentioned
I
it.
know. Well, my other thing too is like when you like we were talking earlier about, when you're teaching yoga and somebody's consistent practitioner, they're coming to you once a week, twice a week, three times a week, whatever it is. And then being a physical therapist is so different. Like my experiences with physical therapists have been incredible, thank goodness. Like I've always advocated for a good physical therapist though. Even like I've had 3 hip surgeries in the past 5.5 years. I have a tendency, I guess, to grow bony spurs that tear into the cartilage and rip everything up. So I have to get both my hips replaced at some point in the next year or so. And we've got other stuff going on with my husband's health. And so I'm just kind of waiting to see how I do. But when I went for physical therapy, I specifically asked for a therapist that had a yoga background.
Did
Because
you?
I did, because I wanted them to understand like I am a hypermobile person, right? I'm
Yeah,
very
you are.
flexible. I'm not as strong as I should be. I probably am not connected to my muscles the way I should be. And this was 5 years ago. And I've been practicing since I was, 18, 19 years old. So this is a lifelong journey for me. And to look back and go, okay, why is this happening? Like, why am I struggling? And the therapist said to me, like, squeeze your butt. And I go, I am. She goes, no, you're not. Not even close.
Mm.
And just talking about
Yeah.
like lazy ass syndrome and how none of us really know how to turn on our glutes. Literally, that's what
Yes.
it is. It's called lazy ass syndrome, right?
Shut up.
I'm not kidding. Am I
Yeah.
right?
No, I talk about snoozy glutes all the time, but I like lazy ass. That's
Yeah.
good.
Lazy
I
ass
like
syndrome.
lazy ass.
Yeah.
Snoozy glutes. That's pretty good too. I can use that with
Yeah.
clients.
But
But
like
lazy ass,
lazy ass. But like you see
beautiful.
us for, well, at least my physical therapy interactions have been like, okay, you show up, you have your appointment, you see the assistant, he puts you on something for 5 to 7 minutes, and then you do one other thing, and then you spend about 5 to 7 minutes with the physical therapist, kind of manually moving and then giving you some exercises. And then
Yeah,
you're,
but that's an insurance thing.
yeah,
That's
yeah, but
set up
that's
as
what I'm
an
saying.
insurance.
Like,
It's
if
But
you're,
that's actually
dictated by
why
insurance.
I haven't worked in a clinic in 20 years.
yeah, because of
Ah,
that, right? Because like you can't,
I
just
feel
like a
like what I'm
physical,
doing is more prehab now. Like
oh,
I
I love
really
that.
want to prevent people
mm,
from needing PT. And that's really LYT is designed to be prehab. We have people of all ages doing it. And also they can come back from recovery. We've had plenty of people who've had hip replacements come back and do great. But people will say, "Oh, do you still practice PT?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do every day, but I don't do it in a clinical setting, and I'm actually way more effective." And that's unfortunately why a lot of PTs have left the clinical setting,
yeah.
and are doing, their own private because
Hmm.
it's you can make much more impact. If I have a private client, I can see them 1 to 4 times and make a bigger impact than they'd have 3 months in the clinic
Hmm.
because it's just all about specific of what they need. It's full on one, and it makes a huge difference.
So how do
Very
you, yeah, I
interesting.
was going to say, so how does that work? So like you've got your
Yeah.
clinic, so they come to you. So say I'm one of your clients, right? I've had 3 hip,
Yeah.
surgeries. I'm about to have to get both my hips replaced. So what happens if I were to come to see you?
First of all, since you're in Texas, we would do it virtually. I do almost
Well,
all of my things
say I
virtual,
lived
and
in
it's fine.
Massachusetts.
It's
Like,
it's as
yeah,
effective.
yeah. So like say I
Oh,
lived
then
up
you would
there.
come to me and I would
Yeah.
work with you here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how would
So
you do
first of
it?
all, what I want, knowing that, yeah, so I would make sure that knowing that you're hypermobile, hypermobility is another area that I've kind of inadvertently, um, I guess, specialized in because so many hypermobile people end up coming to me. And I was I think very early on in teaching yoga, I would say in my teacher trainees, I would say, the person that comes in is super stiff, like be so grateful. The person that comes and is like putting their leg and doing all this stuff, be afraid for
Yes.
them because
Yes.
they are going to get injured without a doubt.
Absolutely.
You don't have the proprioceptive input. You don't feel anything. You don't know you're in range. You're going into all that passive restraint structures, the labrum, the tendons, the ligaments, and it's going to, and of course, and then yoga has applauded that. So you just keep doing it, right? And so so the hypermobile people, I would always be like, stop, don't go into in range,
Mm.
stay here and hold and really learn how to hold around the bone, hold your core, hold and not, not just sink. I always say sinking is not takes no talent. You're just letting gravity do it for you, and then you're going deeper into your range. So the first thing I would do is work on your hip mobility, but with strength. So a lot of stability, just to prepare you for the recovery. And yeah, get your glutes going in all different ways, in all different planes, weight bearing, mostly weight bearing. Most of the things you have to do, you've got to load the foot because then you get that ground reaction force coming up through the leg into the hip. Doing things, we might do some things like side lying or whatever, where you're non-weight bearing just for pure mobility, but also to teach, like, how do you move your hip where your pelvis isn't moving at all, where your ribs aren't moving at all? Because people in yoga in particular, but people in general, have no idea the difference between moving the pelvis and moving the hip. And the pelvis is primarily there to be stable.
Right.
It's not to move. We should move it when we're purposely doing that. Cat cow, that's great to just keep the tissues around it uh, fluid. But when we're weight bearing, when we're doing function, when we're doing any kind of um, any kind of movement, the pelvis should be stable. It should be neutral. And so I would really just work on what is your pelvis doing? What's your rib cage doing? Because if your ribs are moving, your pelvis is moving. So how do you stabilize? It's called a thoracopelvic cylinder, so that hip can really truly be centered in the joint, move well, not push on any of those tissues, and then hold, and then find strength throughout all of those different ranges of the motion of the hip. So when we rotate the spine, we're rotating the rib cage around the spine, but we're not sinking one way or another. We're not tipping the pelvis. So really understanding how to keep it stable and then dynamically stable, meaning it can have movement to it when we want it to, side bending and stuff, but it's not a collapse. It's from strength. So dynamic movement is depending on strength. And with yoga, what I often talk about is, with any kind of movement, but yoga in particular, it's much more important to understand what isn't supposed to be moving than what is moving. Because when you understand that, then your movement changes. It's stronger, it's healthier. But if you just move in any way to execute, like, you can execute movement in a variety of ways, but we want to do it in the way that is, I often reference a door. A door opens and shuts because of a hinge. But if I open the door and the door came off the hinge, that would suck. You know what I mean? Like, the hinge is there. It's super stable. To move something depends on that hinge. So we have to have what is our stabilizing force against the movement. And so and the thoracic pelvic cylinder is definitely, with hips, we look at a lot.
You talk in a very language very similar to what I just finished studying, which is gyrotonic. And I don't know if you've heard of it or if you've done it or anything like that.
I've not done it. I've heard of it. It's like a kind of Pilates with machines. Is that right?
It is. It's actually was originally called yoga for dancers. And so it's been around for something crazy like 40, 45 years, probably longer. But it was developed, and the idea is for, decreasing pain, for improving posture, for decompression, for expansion around your joints, but also connecting. So thinking about being connected to your spine and movement from the spine. It's a beautiful, I think you would really enjoy it. Like, I know that it's pretty popular out on the West Coast and up in the Northeast, like anywhere where there's like a big dance community or professional dancers, you'll find it. I know it's big in San Francisco and such like that, but that might be something cool for you to look into too, especially since the way you speak is very, very similar to kind of this action of gyrotonic movement, right? And the system of principles that they have. But I mean, it's so interesting to me. So like, if I come to your clinic, am I paying for a class? Am I paying for, is my insurance going to cover it because you're a physical therapist? Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, so no, if you do one-on-one, that's a private session. And what I would do, I would give you an invoice and then you would submit that to your insurance. So the invoice has my PT license and all that on it. But I'm completely private. I don't go through insurance, but almost everyone that works with me who decides to go through insurance submits it and it gets covered.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that that's important to note because,
Yeah.
what you're saying about prehab is the most important thing because especially if you're getting ready to go to surgery, go to prehab first. Learn about what's going to be done to you and how you're going to need X, Y, and Z. I really wish that they had that when I was young and I tore my meniscus when I was in my early 20s getting on an airplane. And I was terrified of moving afterwards because every time I would walk or put a little pressure, I would worry that my whole knee was just going to go, and just collapse and break. And so I was afraid
Oof.
of movement. I was afraid. But then the second time
Yeah.
I realized like, oh, well, I had a lot of atrophy in my left quad from not moving the first time,
Mm.
and so, good thing I had 3 times a charm. So I had it 3 times and learned, how to rehab from it, but I shouldn't have to be that way in my body. Right.
No, and I agree. Like pain is not, it's not an enemy. And maybe it could be a friend. We could look at it that way, but it's information. It's
Mhm.
something that your body's telling you. But then it doesn't mean don't move. That's usually the
Right.
big takeaway is people are afraid to move because they're afraid to recreate that pain. But movement is actually going to usually help. But if you're not comfortable knowing what movement you should do, go to a PT right away. Don't wait and like um, let it get weakened because the best thing to do is to move and to strengthen it.
Um, oh, well, she was talking about very careful, very structured movement. And I loved what you had said, circling back, I loved what you had said about in yoga, knowing what shouldn't be moving is really important. I thought that was a great point. And so it made me wonder when you practice yoga, when you teach yoga, like what style um, do you prefer? Because it runs the gamut. Some of it is really fast and really powerful and really hard, and some of it is so slow you hardly move at all. Or you've got yin where you hold the pose for several minutes. Like, I mean, the spectrum is wild. It's huge. And so with your educated clinical brain, what type of yoga does it like?
Well, it's the style I created called LYT Yoga, which is it's vinyasa yoga at its essence. So there's some sun citations that are recognizable. There's sequences that contain some yoga poses that are recognizable, but there's a lot of other things. And there's physical therapy, functional movement, plyometrics, lots of work
Mm.
where we're weight bearing on our hands, on our forearms, on our feet, because weight bearing is one of the best ways to get that global strength. And so it's really like people say, well, do you do anything else? Not really, because I incorporate all those things, the missing links. I guess with yoga, you could say some of the missing links would still be like pulling action. So,
Pulling for
but
sure.
we add weights to our some of our routines.
It's great.
We do, again, a lot of weight bearing in our hands. We do inversions on our hands, not headstands or anything like that. And so it's very comprehensive. And the key thing is there's a lot of movement variability. So, in answer to your question, movement variability means we're moving all around the mat. We're moving up and down from planes. So, getting down, getting up, because this is mimicking what our body is designed to do. People sometimes will feel like really delayed. Like I could move pretty quickly because I'm agile and I have those ranges of motion and strength within those ranges of motion. So if somebody comes to a class and it's feeling like the pace, it's not fast for the sake of being fast. I've seen those type of vinyasa where just blitzing through things, but it's moving in a variety of planes, which is going to feel fast for people who don't have that are like a step behind. They don't have the coordination, they don't have the mobility. So we have slower moving classes for that. So on our platform, for instance, we have a beginner, intermediate, advanced. Advanced just means yes, you can expect there's going to be some advanced type of actions like handstands offered if you want to take them and things like that. But it's also that we're going to be moving in all different planes. And that is there. So the advanced, are you advanced? It's that this is with it. You might be challenged in those ranges. And if it's too much, you go to an intermediate, which is going to be a little bit
Mm-hmm.
slower. So that's the way I look at it. But it's essentially there's a blueprint. We start off on the ground. We do what's called the reset, which is going through developmental moves, which are the moves we did from birth to being a bipedal. And when you revisit those, that's what I did with my stroke patients, et cetera. You're priming the proximal muscles, the muscles that are closest to the bone, the deep muscles, you could call them the core muscles. You're priming them to better stabilize with bigger movement patterns. So we do that on the ground to set the stage. Because like I said at the beginning, when I started to want to incorporate this, the reason being is I saw when people would come into a typical vinyasa class, they do a little grounding, sitting there, whatever, and they start moving. Well, they haven't primed that. So they're going to move in their habits. The brain is going to go into the way they always move. So if my
Mm-hmm.
arm, if I don't have the range of motion
Mm-hmm.
and shoulder flexion, I'm going to borrow it from my ribs and do that every
Yeah.
single time. But if I get you on the ground first and teach you, hey, how do you stabilize the ribs as that arm comes in flexion?
Mm-hmm.
How do you stabilize the pelvis? How do you hinge at the hips and not just fold over your legs and move from your spine? We do all of that ahead of time. So then when you start moving in bigger ways, you're primed for it. And you're more likely to be able to move at a pace that is, um, you know, that's not quick, but it's not slow either.
Well, feels good.
So it's really about how
Agreed.
do you prep the body?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels really good.
Well,
You'll
that's,
have to take a class
oh
and
my
see for
gosh.
yourself.
Yeah.
I think
Very
Absolutely.
you'll love
cool.
it.
But here's the thing
Very
too, is like
cool.
the way that you're talking is exact. Like, I feel like you're a sister from another mister, because the way that you say, like, from the center out, like I teach all of my classes that way, even my privates. I start with breath, and I start with abs, glutes, major middle body connection, because that is where the source is, right? And then that's stability. And then arms
Absolutely.
and legs
Yes.
are
Yeah.
mobility. So, how do I get you working from a smart center out so that you're supported throughout? Because people, like, when they go to my yoga classes or my yoga with weight classes, I have you breathing, doing abs and core, glute bridges, all the kind of stuff right from the beginning, because those are big muscles that move big
Yeah.
body parts, but that's not the
Exactly.
way
And that's
most
exactly what we
yoga
do.
is. Yeah.
Like no, no. And that's so everybody should be doing it this way. I agree. And I've been teaching this way for a long time, and I have seen the changes over the years, people doing it. But then the
I bet.
combination is that people need to understand the why behind it, so understanding, and that's where, like in my teacher training, we go deep into functional anatomy. And like we were saying at the beginning, you were scared a little bit about the sciences and stuff. People are like, I don't know. Is this going to be really? But I just distill it. It's not,
Right.
it doesn't have to be over your head. Like I'm
Right.
just pulling the curtains back and saying, anyone, you don't have to be a PT to understand the body, and you deserve to understand the body. But every class, our late classes have been called, and I love this so much that they said it has the detail and education of a workshop, but the intensity of a workout.
That's awesome.
And that's exactly
Okay.
what we aspire to do. Is we're telling you, we're not just telling you, hey, go into this pose. We're really telling you the how, the why, the things to think about. And then that gives people lots of different options. So if
Right.
people, are in a plank, but they can't keep their pelvis neutral in plank, they put their knees down, and there's no shame in that. They're giving their pelvis more support with the knees down. And the key is to hold the center stable. And
Yeah.
you do that with the knees down. There's no shame. And that's the other thing, is that people have said, even when I had the studio, it never felt competitive like some
Mm-hmm.
yoga classes could feel,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody is
Mm-hmm.
having an individual experience in a collective energy. And that comes from really educating people about the why and the how, and not about like what it's supposed to look like. And that
Exactly.
is a big difference too.
Yeah, I mean, what you said too is like, when
Wow.
like the competition on a yoga mat or trying to look like the body next to you or I'm supposed to feel this, I'm supposed to look like this. You haven't even used the word modification. Like you said option. And I love that because I feel like when a teacher is in a class and says, well, if you can't do this, you can modify, you can, it's like
Right.
dumbing it down. It's like, no, that's not, there's no
Your
levels.
words really matter.
It does. They really, really
Yeah,
matter.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel
And
like
by the way, we use blocks in every class. So
yes.
blocks are like your best friends. Like we use them in every class. And I've had teachers who've taken my training and said, how do you get people to use blocks? Because someone along the line has told them that blocks are only beginners don't use blocks. Like,
Exactly.
okay, if you use blocks, you're less than.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just train people, everybody, you're grabbing a block. We use it with our bridges, we use it with our abdominals, we use it, and then we have them right there. And I'll say, hey, grab a block. If your hand can't get to the ground, you want to have that transmission of energy, put the block there. That serves as that. It's perfect. It's
Yeah.
like these are the options you want to have. And no one is thinking, oh, I'm less than. They're like, oh, here's a great way. Here's an alternative for me.
Right. It's the teacher's
And
job
so
to
do you
make it that way.
do you incorporate breath work and meditation or any of those sides of yoga? I'm really fascinated by this class. I think it sounds.
Yeah, you'll have to take it. Yes and no. So what I put in, and we were talking about this on my retreat too, is interesting because somebody said, you never really say philosophy, but everything you're talking about is yoga philosophy. And so I never really personally vibed with going in and having somebody do like a Dharma talk and that kind of thing. So what I try and do is naturally speak from my heart, like how this is going to impact different facets of your life and the way whether it's managing stress or how like when the practice itself is a discipline that brings up heat. It helps us release shit that we don't want to carry anymore. So it naturally kind of comes in there. And in terms of meditation, I think the meditation is in the moment to moment focusing on what is happening in the body. And people often say, I never think about anything else. I don't I'll be in yoga class sometimes somewhere else and I'll be making my grocery list or like what, and all I'm thinking, and to me, that's meditation. It's like clearing the mind of the excessive chatter. So I don't do a like typical type of meditation in that way. And in terms of breath work, I always incorporate it with core because they work together. So sitting and breathing, great. Moving and breathing and understanding where you want your breath to go and how to get it there, better, in my opinion, because it's actually going to carry over.
100%, right?
At the end, when we're in Shavasana, we definitely do some deep breathing and release and deep breathing and release to get the nervous system settled. But throughout, at the very beginning, we start with our bridge. We do abdominals, inhale, exhale. You're on retention, actually, when you're doing different things in your abdominal work. And that retention is to build that core robustness. It's not to hold your breath, it's to retain it, to go into those deeper abdominals. And that's a key facet for diaphragmatic breathing. How do you lift up into bridge, but keep your lower back ribs down? Because that's getting your breath into your back ribs, which are part of your diaphragm. So I teach it in function, if that makes sense. And then it shows up. And I know it works really well because, we have people who are long distance runners who do other things. I myself, my resting heart rate's like 45. I don't do anything else. So I just know that my breathing is super efficient in my practice. And I just teach people how to breathe because most people don't know how to breathe really well, So it's that,
makes the biggest difference. I've got a client, he is 5'11", 286 pounds of pure muscle. He's just a brick shit house, no neck, big guy, came to do an intro to Pilates, right? No idea how to breathe, no idea how to activate his core. And so we sit down and I'm teaching him when you exhale, you can exert energy, you can force, you're getting an activation of muscles. So after like the second session with me, he sees me on the floor. He's like, coach. I'm like, I'm not a coach, but that's really cute. I love it. He calls me coach and he's like, what you taught me has changed weightlifting. It's changed the way I move. Like I'm not just moving, I'm actually understanding how to move. It's just so cool. Breath is everything.
Exactly.
It's
That's it.
everything.
That is.
I mean,
It is. So
it's
the
so
breath and the
cool.
movement, all of it is like, we didn't learn this stuff. We're learning
Yeah,
it in real time here, and that's really impactful and powerful. And but putting it into a place that I think is more that has more carryover, like in function, is I have found to be much more successful.
absolutely. Well, and it's like you said,
Very
like there's so
interesting.
much judgment in our bodies and about our bodies. And just to be able to learn, like, hey, this body is the only one that you're going to get right now, right? Like, this is it. You're in it. And, you don't want to beat the crap out of it all the time. There's got to be a way to work with your body and own your body. And when people start to feel that way, it's empowering and it builds joy and it builds trust and it builds a better human, and instead of just like searching outside, like, okay, let's go get this pill, let's go get that shot, let's go get that treatment. It's like,
Hmm.
no, why don't you find out how to make your body be your body better inside out? Right? That's it. Now, we haven't really asked all the questions, but like, kind of going through your journey with yoga and your journey with physical therapy and movement, what has been like kind of your aha moments that you've had over the years or things that you've seen that like have been the thing that keeps you going, whether it's with clients or whether it's with studying or research or anything like that?
I feel like I have them all the time.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know, um, so sometimes they're bigger ones and sometimes they're smaller ones. But certainly, like, well, I was just leading a retreat last week, and I had four people that were 65 to 70 years old, and each of them came up to me and said, "I am doing this now in my life because of this practice. I am doing," and that's that feeling of like it's more just affirmation, and it just makes me feel, oh yeah, of course that makes sense, but I'm seeing it in real time. um on the other hand, seeing young people have more and more issues earlier and earlier,
Mm-hmm.
I think the aha moment there is just like, wow, we need to get this into the education system. We need kids to understand their bodies, understand the importance of movement, get out of being in the chair with the computer
Oh my
or with
God,
the
yes.
whatever game or whatever, like get away from technology and move their body, because their body is superior to any computer, any game is superior. Like what we have, but it's just sitting there stalled out, batteries dying if you don't do something with it. And so I think for me, the aha is like the older people get it. Like people, like our biggest I mean, on the platform, we have people in 65 different countries, but it's 35 to 70-year olds. And so I know why I appeal to them, because they know like not all
Hmm.
movement is equal.
Mm-hmm.
I've been injured just flinging myself around. I want to know, I want to understand my body more. But the younger people don't yet know that,
No.
but they're feeling the effects in the same way that what people in their 40s and 50s used to feel 10 years ago. They're feeling it in their teenage years. And so
Absolutely.
I believe that's heightens all this when we talk about anxiety and these dysfunctional nervous system in kids. I really believe that movement could solve like 90% of their issues.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think it's just, yeah, it just, I feel, even though from a business standpoint, I know my population is like very clear. It's educated professionals, this age to this age. But I think the big aha of like inspiration and aspiration, and where I want to also spend some energy and time, is how do we get these younger people to understand the importance of taking care of their body, because they're taking care of their nervous system, they're taking care of their soul, they're taking care of their thoughts and all the things that can get really dark for them.
Yeah.
And it's their tools are within them. So the aha moments come in all kinds of ways. I have regularly people telling me how much this has changed their lives, because again, they feel empowered with this education. And I just, that always makes me feel great, but I don't ever like kind of sit on my laurels. I'm always like, who else can I get?
Yeah.
Who else can I get to do this? And I think the younger people are really calling me.
Well, that's
Yeah.
a huge thing for me because
I would love.
yeah, like I started all of my whole, kind of yoga basis, I guess, from family flow yoga and looking at, if it, the whole idea of like a happy wife, a happy life, if your kids are strong and
Mm-hmm.
happy, if the kids are watching the parents model the behavior instead of just talk the behavior that they want to see, and if they can practice and move and breathe and feel free, like you can make a difference in a child by teaching them how to breathe in less time than you can with a 35 to 70-year-old person. Anyone below the age of 18, you will make a pivotal impact in their life if you teach them how to breathe, how to move, and how to quiet their brain. And that's it. Like I did a lot of work up in Chicago in some of the public school districts and had an in school yoga wellness hour during their recess and lunch break. I had an after school yoga program that we did, and we would have it before kids in that school. And for me, it made the biggest difference. But we're, moving down here and having older kids and not having that resource of, right into a school district, and how it's kind of like a lot of BS to get through to some of the public school districts or private schools or charters, magnets, whatever it is. It's like they don't see that as the most valuable thing that they could be offering their kids, because it gets rid of behavioral issues.
Yeah.
Like the fact of in-school suspension. Are you fucking kidding me? Like you're going to make them sit by themselves doing nothing and you think that's going to make it better? You're fucking crazy. When I look at the way schools are run,
Yeah.
it makes me mental. I'm like, you're doing it all wrong. But I don't have a platform besides, my little ripple that I can make with the pebbles I keep throwing into this still pond and being like, wake the fuck up. Wake the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. And I think the parents modeling it is huge.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, they're spending so much time in school.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if the schools could really, really get this going. And they've shown, like, they have done research on schools that implemented more nutritious offerings, for instance, and they saw all those suspensions, all those detentions plummet
Yeah.
just in changing the nutrition. And that's one source, of course, but movement would be, it would be great to pilot some study where there were a lot of like, a lot of problems that were documented that you could then say, like, after a year of doing this, what were those studies like now?
Oh my God.
I agree
I
with you.
love
I
that.
just, there's only so much of us. And yeah, the fact that it's not valued yet is too bad. But yeah, I think we could do something. Yeah. My kids are all, my kids are 20 and 23 and they're both super active. I don't have to worry about, they know, like, oh, I got to go do this. My daughter will be like, oh, I'm feeling kind of tired. I'm gonna get on my mat and do some, and it's just, they know it. I modeled that. They get it. They feel it.
Yeah.
So it's already like encoded, and that could be encoded so easily with these kids.
When I used to do the wellness hour during school,
I'd love to see it incorporated.
It's so cool. In middle school,
Yeah.
I would have kids come in and, at the first couple of times, I would incorporate everything from like a singing bowl to, having oils and having different scents and having different sounds and then having movement and having stillness and breath. And, the kids would come in and we'd say like, we'd start off with like, give us a word, or, we'd have like a little theme about what we wanted to talk about. Right. And we would have kids come in and be like, I don't know what to do. Like, I am super stressed out. My parents are making me decide who I want to go with for Thanksgiving. And I really don't want to go to Florida. I really want to go to Georgia, but I don't know how to tell my parents this. And it's like, oh my gosh, like just breathe and move and see, kind of, you trust yourself, trust what your gut's telling you, and you know that you love your parents and they will love you. And kids would come up afterwards and be like, I feel so much better. Like after Shavasana, kids would fall asleep hard, like dead asleep. Parents would come in, they're like, what's wrong with my kid? I'm like, they're just tired. They're fucking tired. They've been at school all day, sitting up trying to pay attention. My poor kids would come home from school and just like break down because they're holding it in all day long to try to fit this fucking mold of what we think is right. I don't understand how like movement has changed, life has changed, but yet school curriculum is the same fucking bullshit that we've been doing forever and nothing is working. So it's like, get them up and have them move. Where is the issue with that? I mean, I'm all about if anybody wants me to
Yeah.
go and do a study or help out in any way, I'm in. I love working with kids. I love having them have those aha moments on their mat because it means the world to the rest of the world. Right? We don't want to raise a bunch of fucking assholes. We
Yeah.
want wonderful humans. And that's what we can do if we get them breathing
No,
and moving early.
yeah, we should like talk about getting that study going. I think it would be
Yes.
awesome.
I would
Yeah.
love that. I would love that. I mean, I could talk to you all day because you have so much passion and so much like energy around the things that I hold true in my life and in my principles about movement and about being accepting of our bodies and taking control of our lives rather. So what can like our listeners learn from your story and how you've grown in this yoga world?
Well, for my personal story, I would just say be a critical thinker and be an advocate for yourself and never, ever, ever apologize for taking care of yourself first. I think women in particular, we've been really conditioned to be caregivers, and
Mhm.
often that means putting ourselves like on the last on the list. And we know to be true that that doesn't work. So we should, nobody else is going to do the work. I always say the good news and the bad news is no one else is going to do it. Like you really have to do it yourself. You have to show up for yourself. You have to make it a priority. If it's not yet a habit, you have to develop that habit. And that habit takes time. And it doesn't have to be an hour class. It could be 15 minutes of movement here, 15 minutes, but you've got to do it.
Mhm.
Every system in your body depends on it. And doing it now, whether you're 20, 30, or 70, it's never too late. You're always going to make a big difference. So I think the biggest message I would say, because I've really lived this, is put yourself first because you're going to be better for everyone else because of that. And you're going to be more successful with whatever you do. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you won't have the energy, you won't have the stamina, you won't have the patience, you won't have the emotional bandwidth
Right.
for all that comes our way in life. And so, and it allows you to feel and be okay in all the feelings. You'll have strength to manage the hard times. So that would be my biggest message. And, come and do yoga with me. I have an online platform, and I'd love to offer your listeners, a free five week $5 for 5 weeks, which is like a really good bargain
Ooh,
for our. So I'll give you the code for that to be able to put in your show notes and everything,
that's
so people can try
amazing.
it out. 5 weeks, like forget the first week. Just try a couple classes a week. Start the movement going. If you can't do a whole class, then don't do a whole class. It's okay. Like it's you just have to start somewhere and don't give up on continuing.
Oh my
I
gosh, I'm
love that.
so excited.
I love
Listeners,
all of it.
what a treat from Laura. I'm so excited that we get to offer that. We'll definitely have it in the show notes to talk about. I mean, I just love you. I think you're amazing. I can't wait to like meet you in person one day and
No.
see you. I'm going to get on and do the 5 weeks for $5 for sure cuz there's never for
Me too.
yeah, for being in movement, it's like a lot of people will kind of limit themselves into what they think that they like instead of being open to try different things. And I think that platform that you have, this online program, is going to be one thing that you can reach so many more people than just having a brick and mortar studio.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing too is that if like yoga isn't even your jam, if you're listening to this podcast, probably that's not the case. But if you like have another yoga that you love, or you're really gotten into pickleball or whatever, this can be an and. Like this will help you do everything else better and cleaner and healthier, I promise. So it doesn't have to be like take all the classes, but just take a few classes and see and start learning about your body.
That's awesome. All right.
And I'm really, really curious
Oh,
about
yeah.
your formula. I'm excited to try your format.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a blueprint to it. There's a method to the madness. It's both analytical and really creative. So get ready for that too. There's a lot of things that you won't necessarily have seen before, and that's okay. We take you through them, and once you learn the names, it becomes a little bit easier as well. But
Thank you.
enjoy,
That's
enjoy.
awesome. So, where can our listeners
Thank
find you,
you.
Laura?
Best place is lityoga.com. LYT is it's lytyoga.com. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm Lara.Heimann, or Lit Yoga Method is the brand handle. And yeah, on our website we have blogs, we have our podcast called Redefining Movement, And then that has access to the online studio as well. I have online teacher trainings and then I have retreats. So all of that is on the website.
Fantastic. Well, yoga is always evolving and always changing our lives. So I'm sure we'll get to catch up with you again soon. But keep in touch with us. Keep doing everything you're doing and sharing your love of yoga and your perspective on how to move and feel better. And we just really are grateful for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you both. Thank you.